Atlantis is one of the most famous legends throughout history and one of the biggest mysteries. A large number of researchers, historians and scientists have spent their entire lives trying to reach it or even trying to reach evidence of its existence. Throughout history, the idea that is formed about Atlantis changes from one generation to the next. Many people nowadays believe that the city of Atlantis was a symbol of idealism and peace, although the Atlantis described by Plato in his works is far from peace or even idealism. The first time I remembered Atlantis was in the works of the Greek philosopher Plato, known as Maiz and Critias, which were written in 360 BC, in which Plato narrated, quoting one of his ancestors, when he traveled to Egypt and met priests there, and they told him about the great island of Atlantis, which existed 11,000 years ago. Plato described Atlantis as a large continental island and mentioned that it was in the middle of the ocean. The Atlantic is almost their civilization witnessed progress, prosperity and superiority in all fields, and its people had advanced technologies that surpassed their era and time, and its people were distinguished by strength, wisdom and nobility in addition to, of course, the obscene wealth due to the natural resources that were on the island, and the island was a major center for trade in the entire region, and they had superior military power due to the advanced technology they had. But with the passage of time, greatness and pride controlled its rulers and people, and they began to covet control over the whole world, and Atlantis turned from a symbol of civilization the advanced and flourishing symbol of tyranny and greed, and they were actually able, due to the terrible power they had, to take large areas of different continents and impose their control over parts of Africa and Europe before the people of Athens. The people of high morals, according to Plato's description, united, meaning, and confronted the tyranny and power of Atlantis, and because of the chivalry and courage of the people of Athens and the greed that the Greek gods took control of the people of Atlantis, and they claimed that they took revenge on them and destroyed the island and completely drowned it, and the island disappeared with its civilization and people forever, and it remains to this day a lost civilization without any trace. But the question remains, did Atlantis really exist, or is the subject merely its borders? Throughout history, many philosophers, researchers, and historians have seen Atlantis is a symbolic story that expresses the pride and greed of the people and rulers of Atlantis, who are considered the opposite of the ideal image of the Athenian society and who were able to stop the advance of the forces of Atlantis and the protector of the whole world. In short, the story is directed to glorify the Greeks, not to focus on the civilization of Atlantis or its history, because it is difficult for a continental island with all the people on it and the advanced civilization they possess to disappear from existence at once without any trace. And Atlantis remained a fictional legend and a metaphorical story, nothing more. Until the late 19th century, when a new idea emerged that said that the disappearance of an entire island could have a very normal logical explanation, and that natural disasters could actually wipe out an entire civilization from the face of the earth. The first person to put forward this idea was the American writer and politician Ignatova Atlantis, who suggested the possibility of Atlantis actually sinking and disappearing because of floods and historical evidence of ancient civilizations such as Atlantis, minus in its entirety. And although Donnelly's general view is that the island may have actually disappeared due to a natural disaster, this is acceptable talk with no problems, except that Donnelly was attached to Atlantis a little too much and wanted to be generous with himself and said that all ancient civilizations descended from the civilization of Atlantis and the most important achievements of ancient civilizations. All of them, whether language, agriculture, art, architecture, industry, all of them originated from the people of Atlantis after they reached Europe and Africa and spread their knowledge and progress at a time when the rest of the peoples of the world were sitting like children playing in the dirt. Of course, such talk is unacceptable to the mind. In January 2015, a group of marine archaeologists made a strange discovery while examining a 2,500-year-old wreck while they were searching near the island of Calais in the Mediterranean Sea and discovered 39 ingots of a strange red metal. After this discovery, the Italian archaeologist Sebastiano Tusa said that this discovered metal is the metal that was used in the famous coin called Uri Koch, which according to the works of Plato was minted on the island of Atlantis. The same, which was considered second in value after gold and was one of the reasons for the wealth of the city of Atlantis. According to Plato, all the people of Atlantis died and sank with the island, but the researcher the Frenchman Bras de Bourbon confirmed that a group survived the sinking of the island and fled towards the Americas, and they were the ones who formed a new civilization there, which later became known as the water civilization. But of course, all of this talk is just theories without any evidence. Finally, the question on the minds of many people regarding Atlantis remains: where exactly was Atlantis? Researchers and historians throughout history have differed on the location of the lost continental island, because according to Plato's description, the island was located in the Atlantic Ocean, the place where the volcanic Lazarus Islands are now located, and when the Portuguese discovered them in 1427, they were not. It is terrifyingly populated, but at the same time, buried artifacts were discovered on it, indicating that these islands were discovered thousands of years ago, and the spikes that were found in 2015 near the island of Thakalia were the reason for the emergence of a new theory about the location of the lost city. Because a group of researchers are convinced that his work, the Ori Calcta, is actually a mixture of copper and gold that was developed in the Andes region of South America. There is a different translation of Plato's story in which the lost city is located near Egypt, specifically in the Mediterranean Sea. The Mediterranean, when we focus on the history of the Minoan civilization, we find that it reflects, in one way or another, the lost civilization of the island, especially since it reveals about the Mosaic civilization that it also had advanced technology that surpassed all the technology that the Greek civilization had reached. In the middle of the rubble after the eruption of the Serra volcano, a mural was found. A natural landscape of an island in the middle of a large lake that closely resembles Plato's description of the island of Atlantis. Despite the many studies, theories, and books that have engraved the idea of the lost Atlantis, until now there is no strong evidence that confirms or denies the existence of the legendary continent. However, supporters of the truth of the existence of Atlantis still refuse to give up and continue.